Welcome to the wonderful world of wine. We are your hosts, Mark Lindsay and Kim Simone, exploring all things wine with you. Find us on Facebook at The Wonderful World of Wine. Welcome back to the wonderful world of wine. We are your hosts, Mark and Kim, and every week we join you to discuss what is going on in the world of wine.
How are you, Kim? I'm back.
Well, Mark, how are you? This has been a little bit of a crazy time. We've now we're all geared up to record our show remotely. You at your spot, me at mine.
Yeah, crazy things going on, Kim, and good to be back talking wine with you and talking with our listeners and hoping everybody is well. It's sure been crazy. Let's talk some wine and what's going on in the world with all this craziness.
Well, it's good to be talking about wine again. I know we've all really missed it. You've been working hard. I've been trying to just, keep myself mentally together.
Yeah, it's a lot of people are in the same boat. I mean, and let's update the listeners, Kim. So I'm in the retail world and the wine world, and you're in the restaurant industry. Mm-hmm. So update the listeners, Kim, how this has all impacted your life right now.
So restaurants, as most people know, have been heavily impacted by the COVID situation. Personally, my restaurant group that I work for made the decision fairly early on, even before the governor shut down most businesses in the state of Massachusetts, that we were going to close down. So Legal Seafoods has suspended operation, and it's been a few weeks now. So our ownership decided not to do even any takeout or any delivery or anything. So all about 3,000 employees of us have been temporarily put on furlough. So none of the restaurants are in operation at the moment. And
Kim,
not every restaurant made that decision, but our restaurant group did.
So Legals is multi-states, right? Is it across the board?
Correct.
All the states are shut down?
Yes, it's all of our restaurants. Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's huge. And you made the decision long ago. You said no takeout, so no income is coming in right now for Legals.
Correct.
Wow, that's huge. I mean,
it's kind of tough.
So sad what's going on with restaurants. You're hearing a lot of local stories. You wonder how a lot of the smaller people will get through it. It's crazy. And of course, there's a major wine impact. You're educating and selling the wine in the restaurant, but they did pass a law now where restaurants that are open doing takeout can have wine as a takeout as long as you buy food. So have you heard any feedback on that? Or
I haven't heard of too many people doing it, but I have heard feedback from people saying that they feel like this is a good idea. I really like that the rules have been lightened up a little bit to allow for restaurants to sell some grocery items, which I think is really a smart idea, because many people don't know that the supply chain for food products going to restaurant places versus going to grocery stores is completely different. So if you are going to the grocery store and there's no flour in that grocery store, yet your restaurant that you ordinarily might order from has a supply chain in place where maybe the restaurant distributors have plenty of flour to sell everybody. So it's been nice to see that certain areas are allowing restaurants to, like you said, not only sell alcohol, sell a bottle of wine with whatever your takeout is, but to be able to provide flour and yeast and sugar and vegetables and other grocery items. So I think that was, a relatively swift adjustment to this new reality that we're in right now.
Yeah, especially when you hear all this thing about shortage of meat lately. So, I mean, that's good for consumers. Let's talk a little bit back the wine side for the restaurants, Kim. There has been, because the restaurants have been closed, there has been a lot of these special wines being released to retail because the restaurants are not taking them. So they're releasing them to stores so people can still get them, which I'm kind of on the fence now about, because if the restaurant still has a chance to sell them, and I don't think it's fair. And I did notice restaurants that are selling takeout wine, they're being very fair with the pricing. It's not like if you were dining in price for a bottle of wine. So I think that's really nice of them. And, for them to get income that way, I think is really a great idea.
So what you've seen, Mark, is it more closely aligned to retail pricing, or is it kind of halfway between what a regular restaurant markup would be?
Yeah, usually we see 2 to 3 times retail plus some money. So now it's maybe one time, it's only a few dollars more. So okay. I think it's fair. And they're not really trying to sell that crazy stuff, just the everyday restaurant allocated everyday stuff. So
yeah. And I did see that, listings for wines by the bottle, and there are a couple of places that are selling growlers of beer as well, which I was like, oh, that's a great idea. And yeah, the variety seemed to be, small and manageable. It's not like a wine list of, 50 different bottles, but reasonable and, just an add-on to people's meals that, might be something that they don't want to go out to the store and buy something, but you've got the availability and the ability to get it with your meal.
Well, then the state allowed take-home mixed drinks too, so that helped.
Great for Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah, and it's sad because we just had Cinco de Mayo, and I saw a huge impact that I'm sure the restaurants saw a loss in. Being retail, more people were not going out for that margarita. They were stocking up on tequila, and definitely saw the impact on our side, how it affected restaurants for Cinco de Mayo. So
yeah. So how have things been on the retail side of things?
Retail, I mean, everybody's seeing it, that everybody's home and they're drinking and they're with their kids, and obviously there's no place to go. So people are buying more wine for home. And I just heard from one of the distributors that even with the restaurants being closed, the wholesalers themselves are up like 20-25%.
Wow.
So that is a really big stat in the wine world. They're still selling wine and beer and liquor, even though the restaurants are not selling the volume that they're selling. So that tells you a lot of how.
So you're saying that it's being at home all day with our children that is driving us to drink.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have, I don't, but I'm hearing that a lot from people. And not only that, I mean, it's just a tough time. People, they're struggling out there, and we see that, and it's sad. I'm hearing a lot. You might have heard, Kim, 2 different things that are floating around. Let me ask you, what did you hear is the reason liquor stores, wine stores were deemed essential businesses during all this?
I had heard just one little snippet saying that they needed to remain open because if people who have a drinking problem don't get their alcohol, that they could die because of it. I don't know how true or real that indeed is.
Flood the hospital system because they became ill, was what I heard on that.
Or because they would, try to drink other types of alcohol that are more damaging to your system, like rubbing alcohol, something like that.
Right. Which goes back to the whole, prohibition because it was unsafe. But I think what I tell a lot of people is you have to understand, in Massachusetts anyway, what happened when the supermarkets wanted to get beer and wine to be sold in their stores. One of the big things they said was beer and wine is essential to the food industry. So everybody said, okay, yeah, you're right. So they then got beer and wine in the supermarkets. So now this comes up and it's essential. It's looped into that food essential thing. So
because it's been categorized by the state as an essential item, it is kind of grandfathered into this program that it's an essential business.
That's what I truly believe. Because if you look at the other point where it's bad for people who need it, the state of Pennsylvania has been shut down for months now, and I'm hearing you can't even cross the border to get booze, and they'll stop you. So
the shutdown of Pennsylvania, that was the first legal seafoods restaurant that we closed, was our 2 in Pennsylvania because of the alcohol situation.
And they're all state run.
It's because it's a state. Yeah. They're all state stores. So none of our restaurants, and I think that was a week before, or maybe 5 days before we closed up here. There was like no warning at all that all of a sudden our restaurants were calling us in a panic because the state stores were closed, and all of a sudden they couldn't they couldn't get their orders. And I think that was like maybe, it was just about a week before we closed down up here.
Oh, that's right, because they have to get their liquor through the state.
Right.
Yeah.
So the state just
could they
up and shut.
Could they have stayed open, still selling with what they had, or they couldn't?
I mean, they could have, but they were running out really quickly, and especially because one of them is an airport location in Philly. Our airports, because their storage space is so much smaller, they have to order on a little bit more of a regular basis and keep moving through product really quickly. So on the one hand, that's excellent for freshness. And, we're always up to date on what we have there, but storage is a little smaller. So, we don't keep a lot of backlog stuff. Yeah.
Well, interesting.
Yeah.
It's, I tell that story to everybody, what's going on in the retail, and so it's crazy, and it's affected both of our lives in different ways, but I think there's just a lot of other things. We could talk good things now, Kim. Something good. We'll talk something. Find something good out of this. You're listening to The Wonderful World of Wine, and thank you for joining us today. We are your hosts, Mark Lindsay and Kim Simone, exploring all things wine with you. You can find us on Facebook at The Wonderful World of Wine, and you can find our past episodes on SoundCloud or iTunes. Okay, so Kim and I are here finally talking wine again, and we'd like to just update you on what's going on in this crazy COVID-19 situation in the industry. And we talked about how it affected Kim's restaurant life and my retail life. And Kim, a couple of things that have been trending with all this going on. One of them I'd like to talk to you about is, since we can't get together for gatherings and taste wine, one of the things that impacted my industry is no salespeople are coming around. So I can't sample wine. So I'm very deprived in my wine tasting. But they're
You're deprived with your samples too.
Yeah, samples. Well, luckily they're sending me bottles to take home, so it's even worse now. But all these new trends have come up about virtual wine tastings, and I'd like to get your feedback. What do you think? Where people just get on Zoom calls or webinars and talk wine, taste wine. What do you think about it?
So I'm wondering how logistically that would work. Are people being sent or being asked to go out and purchase full bottles of wine and then taste along with a leader? Or is it more, watch me drink wine on Zoom, Yeah,
I think I've seen it all different ways.
Yeah.
Wineries themselves, because they want to get the word out about their wines, they're hosting watch, and we'll tell you about the vineyards. We'll show you what's going on. This is our wine, hoping that maybe you'll order it for future orders. Mm-hmm. And then there's seminars where they're saying, hey, get this Sauvignon Blanc and get a nice garden salad. We're going to do a food and wine pairing, or we're going to walk you through tasting of this. So it's two different ways. And I think people were excited just to kind of take part in something. Mm-hmm. But then I was thinking, Kim, when we host events in the future, when we're all together, I think it would be a great idea. Why did we not think of this in the past? Why can't we call up these winemakers when we're tasting their wines, to Zoom them into our conference room, to bring them in to talk to our guests, like in your restaurant? Why don't we just do that? I know, like the Wahlburgers chain, I don't know if you watched that show, but the Wahlburgers burger restaurant, they mm-hmm. put in all these monitors in their restaurants. So at any time, any of the Wahlburgers can pop up and say hi. So I'm thinking doing something like that for future things, because now we have these people in these wine positions who are sitting home. They're looking for things to do, and they're saying, hey, let me do this virtual thing with people that you know and talk about our wines. But
sure, it's like having the winemaker right there with you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's going to change how we do tastings in the future, because it's going to be more virtual experience. Why not have that guy who we're tasting his wines say, hey, let me take you out in the backyard and show you my vineyards as we're all sitting there, So I like the idea, but nothing's going to beat the fact that when we're in the same room and people are laughing at how we taste and stuff like that. So,
but what's interesting is that, this experience this kind of unifying experience is giving us all of these new tools and new things that we never knew before. Like we're all getting pretty savvy about doing Zoom calls and virtual meetings and having to adjust our mindsets to doing things more remotely like this. So, using that as a springboard into what we could do in the future, I think it's pretty smart.
Yeah. And it could be, there's some talk going around that it's also could be a bad thing too, because right now where people, especially in our industry, on the sales side, they're working from home from so long and the sales are still good. So now people are thinking,
why go back?
Not only why go back, but why do we need that position with all this technology nowadays?
Mm-hmm.
Why can't I just virtually do my orders? Why can't I just virtually taste, you send me the bottle? So that could be a sad thing for the industry.
Sure. There are going to be a lot of changes and consequences that I don't think we have any ability to completely wrap our brains around right now.
Right. And on a side note on that, Kim, I saw a few pleas from like small wineries saying, because in my industry and in yours, we could tell the listeners that a lot of the smaller wineries will come to us and introduce themselves and introduce their wines, because they have no one in the companies that are selling their product that really push the small guys, right? They're pushing the big brands. So right now what's happening in the wine world on the retail shelves, the big brands are still very well represented. It's almost like, I'll give you a comparison. When I was doing my supermarket shopping, there was no like barbecue chips. And I said to the guy, where's the barbecue chips? And they're saying, well, we're only focusing on the main chips, basic chips, getting the big brands out there, the big products. That's what's happening with wine. The focus is getting the big brands out there because they're out there. People know it. It's not the time right now that they're pushing the little guy. So now the little guy's suffering because they're stocked up with wine. They're not being distributed. They're not being represented. So I've seen a lot of pleas like that. And again, in your industry at Legals, you're selling that really fine, small production wine that people can't get in retail, and they can't get it right now. So, and
especially if it's something that's exclusive to us. And we've got, some wines that we try to make a point of, hey, this is something that's really special to Legal Seafoods. So, we've put a lot of thought and effort behind having certain wines that, maybe go particularly well with our cuisine, or that we have a particularly good relationship with the winemaker or whatnot. And now that all that stuff has been put on hold. So that's really hard for those relationships and for those brands and for making that effort to, our business as normal is that we really want to focus on those special things. But now what happens to those special things when everything else is put on hold?
Yeah. And for the listeners, usually Kim's Restaurant would say to the distributor, we want this wine, hold it for us. We're going to take it all. But you're not selling it right now. So they're sitting on it. You're not buying it right now. They're not selling it, but that winery wants to sell more. And they can if you're not giving it to your guests. So,
and I'm sure we're not the only restaurant in that situation. And even places that are offering takeout are certainly not going to be putting the focus on their wine program like they usually do.
Yeah, it's a big change. A lot of changes are going to be coming. It's just strange seeing deliveries where people just kind of dumping stuff and running with masks. And
I'm scared to go in public. So
it's I notice in retail there's two different people. There's people that are totally freaked out, and there's the people that don't notice there's a difference. And I say to myself, how can you not know or care what's going on?
There's no in between.
No, it's one extreme or the other.
You're listening to The Wonderful World of Wine. We are your hosts, Mark Lindsay and Kim Simone. You can find more information about Mark at his website, franklinliquors.com, and more about myself at vinitaswineworks.com. You can find previous episodes on SoundCloud and iTunes. So we are back. The Wonderful World of Wine is back, and Mark and I are discussing some of the changes to our respective parts of the industry that COVID-19 has brought to us, both the retail side, the restaurant side, and the wine education side. And we're discussing a little bit about how wine tastings have changed, about how our personal interactions have changed, and how restaurants and retailers are dealing with our new current situation.
Yeah, let's talk more about education, Kim. I know you're busy with the kids. I had some free time. Did you see or take part in any wine education since you've been laid off?
I'm afraid not.
No,
I've
you're
really
too busy.
been
Well, you
more
have two kids.
focusing on. I've been cooking a lot, so I've been cooking. I've been baking. My focus has been a little bit more on our food situation and organizing my household. And my husband is still working, thankfully. So we have that, and the kids have been doing their schoolwork remotely and all of that good stuff. So we've been doing a lot of gardening and a lot of baking, and I'm teaching the kids to cook, which is wonderful. And it's kind of nice to all be together, but stressful because things really are not anywhere near how they usually are.
Yeah, big changes. Well, yours is different than mine. So I've got
littler kids. So
yeah, I had some free time. So I actually saw a lot of good deals on online classes I took advantage of.
So what did you participate in?
I'm kind of doing too much, Kim. I go crazy. I was focusing on Italy because I was going to take a new Italian program that ended up being canceled like just the week before this all happened. So that kind of worked out good. We weren't in like a 10-week class when it happened. So I'm still reading my Italian stuff. And then I took and finished a Cornell University beer class online. And then I'm just finishing up a new UC Davis wine appreciation, they call it, about wine tasting steps and food pairings and
all these new certificates that can go up on your wall.
Yeah. and what they're doing is just offering everything half price. And if you're in the industry and you're looking for things to do and you can prove you're out of work in the industry, they'll give you even a bigger discount. So like the San Francisco wine schools, like almost 75% off their online stuff. So it's a good time. I talked to a few people in the industry. I know a lot of people at one of my distributors, their whole staff, they said, well, you're not just going to sit home. You're going to become certified wine specialists and take the exam while you're home. So they're all cracking down on that, which is nice. They're providing with that. So a lot of stuff, a lot of reading, keeping up, I guess.
Yeah.
Kind of getting burnt out now. Like things haven't changed for me like they have from you. I've actually become a food shopper, and that never happens.
We're getting all of our food delivered, and now we've got a CSA for vegetables that's starting up in a couple of weeks, and we've got some meat being delivered, and it's all new. I'm going and buying eggs from the lady down the street, all of that.
That's good. I did that with water and stuff, and I did order some wine online too. Have you noticed? They said like delivery of alcohol has gone up like 400%.
I'm sure.
And I did take part for the first time in having wine shipped to me. And the whole thing about you have to sign and check your ID definitely doesn't play a part now with everything going on. But
you had wine delivered to your home?
Yes. Yeah. First
from a winery?
From a wine club.
Oh.
And I was looking for a club. Well, there's certain things in wine clubs that you just can't buy retail. They're exclusive wine clubs. So I wanted to try it out, and I was in the mood for some Pinot Noirs, and that's what I ordered. I had 6 bottles shipped. They were quickly gone. So I have to do it again. But yeah,
I've got some favorite wineries in the Finger Lakes region. Maybe I should go online and see if they are doing any shipping to Massachusetts.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good way to support them and get it quick. It came pretty quick. I was shocked, and it's a good time of year to have it sent. It's not too hot yet.
Yes. So is your store doing shipping locally to people?
We're not shipping. We're just doing curbside.
Curbside pickup?
Yeah, curbside pickup, yeah. We're just too small to actually get anyone to do it. So, but it's very common. They're saying that anyone who is on like delivery apps, like I said, it's up 400% in the industry.
For alcohol.
Yeah, for alcohol. Home delivery.
And we certainly know that that's true for groceries. And I guess it would make perfect sense that it would be for alcohol delivery as well. Yeah, it's funny how, Massachusetts certainly is one of those states that has been usually very strict about shipping and alcohol laws in general. And all right, so maybe things get to be a little loosened in times of pandemic.
Yeah, there's been a lot of things there's been a lot of guidance from the state as far as changes to retail, as far as you can't bring your empties back.
Right.
And that, we talk about changes in the future. People are now looking at that and saying, why have we been doing this? If people think about it, when next time you walk by one of those redemption machines outside the supermarket, take a look at how dirty that is. And I remember years ago, they were in the store, and then they made them put them outside the stores. And you think about it, it is like a germ factory. Mm-hmm. We're taking back. Everybody's putting their mouths on all that stuff. So now they're thinking it's stopped, but they're thinking we should look at this in the future.
And what are we going to do with all those bags of empties that are sitting in our garages?
Well, that's the thing. A lot of people are like, well, they're still charging the deposit,
right. If you're charging 5 cents per can, but now we can't redeem
them. But eventually, I think it should just go to the curb and be safer. And it's a change I think should come. And the other thing they sent out notices about. Well, they didn't send out a notice about, and Kim, I'm curious how you would handle this. There was no real guidance with everything going on. You know how when you go to a bank and it says, you can't cover your face or wear a hat, it's all changed, right? Think about on the retail side, people are coming in with masks and you card them.
Yeah.
There's no guidance for us to say, I can't require you to take your mask off and jeopardize you. So do I refuse to say, I have to refuse the sale if you won't identify yourself, or find other ways, but there's been no guidance from the state how to handle that.
Yeah, and I heard rumblings about that a few weeks ago from people who, went into a store and were asked to present ID, and it's like, well, here's my ID, but how do you actually know that it's me?
Yeah, you can't verify it. So that's interesting. And I don't know. I just think months back when I saw people, this is my personal observation, but I always see people with masks. I'm like, why do those people wear a mask? And a lot of times it might have been a medical thing, but now you're like, why are you not wearing a mask, right? It's a whole different world. And we still have to come up with one, Kim, it has some sort of wine theme on it, right? Like a bottle of wine hanging out of our mouths or something.
It's a little wine glass. It looks like we're taking a drink.
Yeah. It's a good time to promote the show with a mask. We'll put the Wonderful World of Wine on a mask somehow. But
all my masks have honeybees on them right now, so I'm in need of new design masks.
Oh, see, you got the custom one. I'm still just wearing the regular medical mask, so I throw them out. It's tough when you're moving around, 12 hours in the thing, and sometimes you don't realize it's on. Then when you start lifting stuff, you notice. Mm-hmm. Makes you sweat a little more.
Well, I'm glad you're being safe.
Yeah, it's good to catch up, Kim, and I think we'll do little updates now and then, but I think we'll get back to our normal what's going on in the wine world, right? For our next show.
There's interesting things to talk about. There's always people to talk to, and I think that we're going to need to explore what's going on in other countries as well, because every place is really reacting and responding in a different way. Just off the top of my head, there's a lot going on in South Africa as far as not being able to even buy wine. So impacts in different places in different countries. It's harvest season in the southern part of the world right now. So that has an impact. And, it's wine growing time everywhere else. So there's a lot going on.
Yeah. And we found a lot of stories we'll share with you in the coming weeks. And now that we're all figured out technically how to get this all done, Kim, I appreciate all your help. And I want to thank Pete in the station for helping us with some nice equipment. I like your new headphones.
I like yours too.
They make our heads look huge. So.
It's a little hard with glasses on too. Well, it's nice to be back, and glad that we're back on the air and bringing more wine information to all of you, our listeners, and we will keep you updated.
Thank you for joining us on the Wonderful World of Wine today. We've been your hosts, Mark Lindsay and Kim Simone, exploring all things wine with you. You can find us a few other ways. We are on Facebook at The Wonderful World of Wine. We're also on Twitter at Wine Education. You can find our past episodes on SoundCloud and iTunes, or just try Googling The Wonderful World of Wine, and hopefully we pop up on the first page. Everybody stay safe.